Mickey Wright's wonderful golf book, Play Golf the Right Way, is how my mother learned to play golf. She would prop the book up in the garage and hit plastic balls off a mat and mimic the photos. And that's precisely how Mickey Wright thought that book should be used. Now, she was acknowledged to have one of the greatest golf swings in history by people who should know, like Ben Hogan and Tom Watson, both of whom thought she had the perfect swing. And both her swing and the use of the photography involved is reminiscent of Sam Snead's book. Now, both of them demonstrate that the arc of the backswing is wrapped around more, so that the club is behind one more at this same stage in the backswing than it is at the same point in the downswing. And the reason is simple. The backswing, the club is not moving that particularly fast, and it stays apace with the body. So the body is turned sooner. I encourage my clients to do it before the club is above waist high. It's sort of fiction, but it's helpful. But on the downswing, the shapes that are adopted at the end of the backswing and on the downswing are a very carefully designed spring, or actually an assemblage of springs. And so the arms are now, the left arm is now clamped closer to the chest because the body, driven by the leg action, is moving toward the target. And the momentum of the club and its inertia is holding it back. Now, if you don't have the strength to keep the arms extended, things fall apart. But of course, these great champions have learned to keep them out, particularly the left arm. And so as the legs pull in this direction, this is lagging behind. And so the body is almost completely back to the impact position facing the ball, essentially a replica of the address position, by the time the club is halfway through the downswing. Now, that spring, we don't want to waste. So we've built this enormous, powerful spring, and we don't want it to fire here. And so you'll notice that golfers, including Mickey Wright, seem to sink a little bit. Their heads go possibly even up and to the right on the backswing, but then they go down toward the target, the ball, to initiate the downswing. Then they shift toward the right foot and then up towards the above the left foot on the follow through. Now that interesting pattern is not there by accident. To start the downswing and not wanting to waste these shapes, we actually sink down, and you see champions actually sinking in this fashion. And in fact, with Sam Snead, he had a uniquely flexible build. He was able at 60 to kick the ceiling quite easily, and you could see that he actually separated his knees to apply this force downward. And the reason is this. Golf is essentially an upside-down trebuchet, which is a medieval siege engine with the rock being flung over the top at the castle wall. Well, if you flip it over, we're going this way with the same exact mechanism, but we don't have gravity to use as a power source. We have to use the upward thrust of the legs to get the same mechanical force on the club, or is actually the basket in which is the rock, which is going to be the club head that hits the ball toward the castle wall. So in fact, we have to sink down so that we've got resistance to this upward force that actually allows us to cycle around it, with the pivot being essentially here on the sternum. So more about that in a moment in the pub. Typically what my mother did, not with a bottle of scotch, of course, but in the garage, prop it up on the ground in front of her, 2 coconut doormats, one to stand on, one to hit from, plastic balls, just like mine, and just copy the shapes. And the shapes were, as I described a moment ago, a set of springs. Now, one you've heard me talk about before, which is this triangular shaped leaf spring, which is essentially the right shoulder. Great champions, in fact, in many sports, have a sort of cleft between the shoulder blades. They're flexible there. I'm a little too old to be able to claim that. But as the momentum of the club fires in this direction, it presses against the body, and if you've got the flexibility and strength in the chest, that squeezes this leaf spring into a very potent shape. But it's no good if you just simply let it spring here. That's called casting over the top, out to in, not good. So we have to delay that. And so also we've started down with the body, and by turning back toward the target, and Sam Snead almost separating his knees to do it. Remarkable act of flexibility, but great strength. And so the arms are, the body, the right shoulder and the right elbow catch up with the left arm. In fact, it's commonly recommended that it feels as if the right elbow is underneath the left one as you pull down. Now, as you tense and secure these shapes, you want to keep them as you come down. You don't want to waste it here. And so the club comes down on an arc that is outside of the backswing arc, just not outside the target line. And these springs are maintained all the way to about halfway down. And then in a lot of instruction over the last 100 years, there's talk about a release point. Well, you have to get to it. And let's argue it's halfway through the downswing. If you can keep these shapes by driving hips this way, and in fact, as you heard me say, subtly sinking down so that you've got your mass acting as a resistor to what will come next. The next thing is that you're pivoting upwards with the left shoulder to allow those spring elements to finally fire and release. And that's where the power comes from in a golf swing.